you have from the first Social Security presentation on Monday. And secondly, is to try to give you some ideas or some rules of thumb, if you will, in your Social Security planning. And then at the end of the lecture, I'll bring it all back together to give you my thoughts on how Social Security works with your actual retirement plan and your retirement income plan. Okay, so I always start off advanced Social Security with a quick down and dirty. You can always go back to the YouTube videos if you want to review the longer Social Security 101. But I'm going to fly through this in about 10-15 minutes as a recap of what we discussed in the first lecture, and then we'll jump right into the advanced part. All right. And Rhonda, since I can see you, can you give me a thumbs up if you're seeing my presentation up there? Just make sure. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So we talked about how people are hurting their retirement Social Security. I'm gonna make a quick note. I was just reading from my master source for all my Social Security lectures and knowledge. I was just reading about the big Doge claim that there were all these people that were 120 or 140, 150 collecting Social Security, and in all actuality, that was not correct. There's very few people that were deceased that were collecting Social Security. What they did is they found a bunch of people. Social Security actually keeps a database of deceased people in their system to make sure that they are not receiving benefits or that they are labeled as deceased based on their Social Security number. Interesting thing for my master source, again, and not to be political, but one of the things the current administration is trying to do to get people to self-deport is to list them as deceased in Social Security, so therefore they can no longer receive benefits, no longer can get a job, can't get a loan, all that other stuff. So kind of a backdoor way of trying to get people to self-deport. So kind of a sad situation. But anyhow, moving forward, things to know about Social Security, all the claiming options. I think the biggest consideration that I like to make sure everyone realizes is that your decision not only affects yourself, but it affects your family for their entire actuarial life as well. So it's very important when you are considering your Social Security decision, when to take it, that you consider it if you do have a significant other, a partner, or obviously you have to be legally married, whatever it happens to be. But you really need to take both of your lives into consideration, not just your own, because of the survivor benefits that we'll go over today. All right. So in the first lecture, if you want to go back and review it, we really talked about the first three here. Today, we're going to talk about maximization and then how it fits into your retirement plan. I discussed OSDI Trust Fund, Old Age Survivor Disability Insurance Trust Fund is what it stands for, and that this is one of the first years that we've had a net decrease in assets, which hasn't happened in previous years when we were giving this lecture. The long-term problem, obviously, is that benefits fall to 80% in 2034 if something significant is not done to shore up Social Security. What are those reforms? I said it in the last lecture, but the most likely one is to continue to increase the maximum earnings subject to Social Security, and probably significantly increasing that, and then moving out retirement age for possibly my generation, Generation X, and then beyond that, the millennials and Gen Y or Gen Z or whatever they're called. I guess maybe we're back to Gen A now. So that would be probably the biggest reforms that we will see going into retirement. Bottom line, if you're a baby boomer and you're on listening to this right now, you're most likely never going to be affected by Social Security reform because you'll already be claiming. Rhonda's gasping for joy there. Good. All right. So one of the biggest things in Social Security, well, I don't want to say one of the biggest, a couple of the facets that you leave this lecture today with. One, Social Security is inflation protected income, much better than your pension at UCSD, much better than your retirement funds. Social Security inflation is based off of CPIW, the Consumer Price Index for working individuals. So it actually benefits retirees because that brings in more things than, let's say, a changed CPI. I don't know in the future if they'll change what it's attached to, the inflation protection, but I will tell you 2 years ago, after 2022 and the high inflationary environment we were in back then, the cost of living adjustment was 8.9%. So it really does keep up with inflation. And you have to remember that when it comes to a guaranteed pension for the rest of your life. we went over, I won't go over these again, but we went over just some of the numbers. And today you see the monthly benefits, 2,000. If you have a cost of living adjustment of 2.6%, what will it be in 10, 20, and 30 years? Listed right there. Well, most of the benefits I'm seeing nowadays are 3,000, 4,000 and more. And so you can just take some of these numbers and double them. So how much you can expect to receive, again, is based on earnings over your working career and when you apply for benefits. Obviously, you can't go back in the past and make more money in the past, right? Your working record is what it is. But the age at which you apply for benefits is probably the number one thing you can do. Also, one of the things I do encourage people to do is go to ssa.gov and review their Social Security statement, maybe back in the 80s or 90s. If you were working back then, there might be some years that you have missing on your Social Security statement, and that's going to affect your benefit. So verify that you do have those top 35 years of earnings. It's 35 years of earnings, only 10 to qualify for Social Security, but 35 is what they use. The highest 35 years of earnings determines your AIME formula, which you don't need to know. That's what Social Security is there for, to calculate, for you. Okay, so why wouldn't I claim at 62? Remember, your monthly benefit will be reduced if you claim early, and if you continue to work, benefits could be withheld because you're subject to what's called the earnings test. So when should you apply? Again, this is an individual decision that is going to be different for anyone and everyone out there. Probably the biggest one is your need for income. If you don't have any other source of income, like 1/3 of this country, their only retirement income is Social Security. And it's hard to fathom that people actually live solely on their Social Security check, but it's actually just over 30% of this country. That's all their retirement income is. Health status definitely plays into it. If you are obviously terminally ill or have a history of early death in the family, then that may come into it as well. Will it be enough to live on a retirement? I would say for most people, especially living in San Diego, it's not going to be enough to live on in retirement just because the cost of living is so high in beautiful Southern California. So terms that we need to know: full retirement age, year of birth. Most of you are going to be in this 1954 and beyond. Is what I'm seeing most people retiring. So just remember, it stair steps up from 54 to 1960, and at 1960 or later, meaning you were born in 1960 or later, it's 67. So that would include me. So if you apply for early benefits, and I'll just use the example, if your full retirement age is 66, to make it simple, you're going to lose 25% of your benefit by applying early, whereas you get the full benefit at 66. If you are delaying benefits, starting your benefits, remember, you still get the cost of living adjustment included in your benefit. So it's not like you're losing out on that cost of living adjustment. It'll continue to go up. And if you're continuing to work and you're replacing lower income earning years from when you started your career and now you're making significantly more money, let's say you started a career, you made 25, 30,000 a year, and now you're making 125 or 130,000 a year. Big difference in your Social Security benefit because you're replacing those smaller earning years with larger earning years, and your Social Security benefit can go up pretty drastically in the last couple of years of your working career. We discussed delayed retirement credits, and what that simply is each year you delay beyond your full retirement age, you get an 8% credit to your benefit. If your full retirement age is 66, up to 32% increase. If it's 67, up to a 24% increase, and give you 132 or 124% of your benefit. And you continue to get those cost of living adjustments. So one of the things I said in the first lecture was, show me someone in my industry or doing it yourself or at Fidelity who can guarantee you over a 10% rate of return each year you delay Social Security in your retirement funds. I would say that's not very likely to happen, right, without taking a significant amount of risk. And so one of the benefits of Social Security is that each year you delay beyond full retirement age, you get an 8% delayed retirement credit, plus the cost of living adjustment, which has averaged about 2.8% since the early 80s. Therefore, you're getting a 10.8% or 10.6 or whatever it averages out to be rate of return on your benefit for the rest of your life when you continue to delay. And so the question is always, well, if I retire at 66 and I'm not taking my Social Security, I'm not making as much of my pension as I was when I was, working. I'm now at a deficit. What do I do? That's what we're going to talk about at the end of the lecture today, because I think that's probably the best way to go about it. And I'll go over the solution. I talked about SSA.gov being where you get your statement. Why we would delay benefits. As an example, if your primary insurance amount, which is just the amount that you are entitled to at your full retirement age, that's all PIA is. If your PIA, if your full retirement age is 67, right, and you have a benefit at say $1,960, at 62, you can see by delaying to 70 with a cost of living adjustment, right, your benefit would then be $42.63 per month if you delayed. That's it's more than double what your benefit would be at 62. So then the common question is, well, but I'm not receiving those benefits from 62 to 70, and if I pass away at 71, I've given up all those years. Yes, that is correct. But what if you live to be 90, right? Now you're, what you need to determine, and one of the things that we do in our calculations for Social Security, and we still provide free Social Security analysis to any UCSD folks, but one of the things you need to determine is what is your crossover point of your benefit. If you were to take it at 62 or 66 or 67 and 70, when did the benefits cross over? When have you collected more benefits from Social Security? And it's important because the amounts that you can potentially collect over the course of your lifespan, if you live into your 90s, which many of you will, because first of all, you're in San Diego, a very healthy community in the first place, right? A lot of stuff to do outdoors, but also, excuse me, this is income you can't outlive. This is a pension that will never exhaust itself, right? And so it is a guaranteed inflation-protected income for you and your spouse for the entirety of both of your lives. So applying for Social Security at the optimal time, we consider three specific things: your income needs now, both now and the future, your life expectancy, and your spouse's life expectancy. Now, I get it. We can never predict when any of us are going to pass away. Otherwise, we'd all go out there and buy a huge life insurance policy the day before. But we do have some direction from our family, our medical history, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's important to, be honest with yourself about how long you may live, because it really affects the Social Security decision, and again, where those crossover points are. Let's talk about one of the most, I would say, unknown benefits of Social Security is the tax benefit within Social Security. Okay, they came up with these numbers in the early 80s, and they didn't index them for inflation, so they're pretty low income amounts as of 2025. But if you're married, filing joint, most of you are going to be over this $44,000. It's called provisional income, so it's just your adjusted gross income plus one half your Social Security benefit plus tax-exempt interest. So you can't hide in tax-free bonds away from getting your Social Security tax. But the amount of Social Security subject to tax up to 85%. That's not an 85% rate, right? That is 85 cents of every dollar you have subject to your rate. So if your rate, say 25%, 85 cents on the dollar of Social Security is going to be taxed at the federal level at that 25% rate. But 15 cents of that dollar, in each dollar you get Social Security, right, is never taxed at the federal level. And the biggest benefit to being a California resident, other than living in one of the most beautiful places in the world, is that you are not taxed in the state of California. Yes, no, it's hard to believe that California did not tax something, but they do not tax Social Security benefits. So that's one of the really nice benefits. The California is one of the states that has a very high income tax that does not tax Social Security. So that makes the Social Security dollar much more valuable to you as California residents than anything you take out of your 403B or your 457 or your pension from the UC. None of those dollars, if we're just counting dollar for dollar, will be as valuable to you as Social Security. The only thing that can beat it, quite frankly, is a Roth IRA, right? And that's because you paid the tax and then your gains are tax-free, subject to some rules within a Roth IRA. All right. And I'll go over that a little bit more when we talk about how this fits into your whole retirement plan. So way to minimize taxes on Social Security, right? Reducing other income with tax advantage investments. I'm actually going to kind of skip this slide because I'm going to go over this at the end. But this part right here, it says anticipate IRA RMDs, which may put you in a higher tax bracket. Everyone knows now because of Secure 2.0 Act, right? Your RMDs don't start until 73 for most of you, if not 75. I believe 2035 if you RMDs go to 75 at 2035, but for most of you, it'll be 73, right? Is a really good way to manage your future tax exposure through optimization of Social Security, and I'll go over that at the end. Remember that your Medicare Part B premium, once you file for Social Security, automatically comes out of your benefit. Just remember that, right? $185 in your Part B premium right now, and that comes straight out of your Social Security. So if your benefit, Social Security is $3,000, it'll be simply reduced by $185. Oh, and then at the bottom, high-income households may have additional charges deducted. So that refers to what's called the, boy, it's in my mind right now. It's it's a Medicare means test, the income-related monthly adjustment, the IRMA, sorry, income-related monthly adjustment, and Medicare is means tested through the IRMA that will subject you. So if you're a high-income earner, or excuse me, a very high-income earner, your Medicare Part B and D premiums can be significantly higher because of your higher income. Just be aware of that. Sometimes I get people that are surprised that there's more taken on a Social Security check than they expected. One of the things, and I discuss this in depth on Monday when I do Medicare, but one of the things you have to be careful of is if you have let's say you sell your primary residence, your home, and you have a year where you have a very high capital gain, that will fit into your subsequent years' Medicare premiums, and you may have significantly more Medicare costs than you were expecting because of that. So key points to remember when it comes to Social Security. First, if you apply early, your benefits start lower and stay lower for life, right? COLAs magnify the impact of earlier delayed claiming. Often I get people that come in, especially the engineer types, they'll come into me, or mathematicians, I should say, and they will show me their spreadsheet of how they determine their break-even point, but they forget to add in the cost of living adjustment. And that is really important because what you're compounding is another 2 to 3% per year on your benefit. So you have to remember that COLAs magnify the impact of early or delayed claiming, meaning negatively on the early side and beneficial on the delayed side. Excuse me. Your benefit may be taxed and reduced to cover your Medicare premiums. And we talked about the taxation. Don't let the earnings test discourage you from working, meaning, you know, if you're going to continue to work, don't collect your Social Security is my basic advice, unless you turn 70. It never pays to delay Social Security one day past age 70, right? And they won't pay you back after 9 months. They will not pay you back lost benefits because you didn't claim on time. All right. Excuse me. Insight number 3, for couples, you should always maximize the higher earner's benefit to protect the surviving spouse. So let's discuss some of these advanced taxes in Social Security, just things to know. First of all, spousal benefit is equal to 1/2 of the primary worker's primary insurance amount if started at full retirement age. So just a simple example, John's CI is $2,000, Jane's is $800. If Jane applies at her full retirement age, the benefit will not be $800. Mind you, that's her benefit. Her benefit will be $1,000. So she should get her benefit, which is $800, plus a $200 a month add-on for the spousal benefit to make her up to 50% of John's primary insurance amount. So the rules around spousal benefits, excuse me, a primary worker must have filed for benefits. So you can no longer claim a spousal benefit on someone who's not claiming their benefit. The whole file and suspend and restricted application were both shut down 9 years ago in 2016 with a House resolution, so you can no longer do that. Spouse must be at least 60. Well, I say you can't do that, but there is one case you can't, and that's if you're divorced. So a divorced spouse can actually claim. So, of course, in one of these lectures, and somebody says, well, so if my wife and I get divorced, then she can claim on my benefit, and then we can get back married once I start my benefit at 70. And the technical answer is yes, you could do it that way. I don't know how that'd go over, and the divorce might be a little more expensive than the benefit of the extra, claiming the extra benefit and the extra months you get, but you can do it that way. Spouse must be at least 62 for reduced benefit or full retirement age for the full benefit. And there are no delayed retirement credits, that 8% that I talked about earlier, on spousal benefits after full retirement age. All right, coordinating. So here is your first maximization strategy. Well, I shouldn't say your first one, because we did talk about other ways to maximize, making sure you have 35 years of the highest earnings possible, checking your, always checking your statement to make sure that all the years are included in there. But if you are a couple, one maximization strategy is where the lower earning spouse's primary insurance amount is more than 50%, in this case, of the higher earning spouse's primary insurance amount. Both spouses would delay to age 70, and then one spouse would take advantage of spousal benefits as allowed. This maximizes lifetime benefits over average or long life expectancy. So again, it's one of those things where you have to look at your family history and what the probability and what the crossovers are, and then make your decision from there. A different strategy, a hybrid strategy, where this is where the lower earning spouse's primary insurance amount is less than 50% of the higher earning spouse's primary insurance amount. The lower spouse in this case would claim at 62, and the higher earning spouse would claim at 70. Why is that higher earning spouse waiting to 70? Well, it's simply to maximize the survivor benefit that we'll discuss here in a second. But just to give you a little lead into it, the survivor benefit for a surviving spouse is potentially 100% of the primary spouses or the higher income earning spouses benefit if collected at or after full retirement age. This generates income sooner. This hybrid strategy generates income sooner while maximizing the higher earning spouse's benefit over both lifetimes, because that survivor benefit would then transfer to the spouse. These are what the analysis that we do look like, and you can see on the very right here where those crossover points are. It's really important to determine what age that happens and what year, and then that's when you need to evaluate your health status and your projected life expectancy and what you think you're going to be living to. Now, early in my career, when I started doing this, lecturing on Social Security 15, 20 years ago, and I was just starting in the financial services industry, I was always a maximize Social Security. I've changed my ways a little bit. Now, I still like it when folks draw down their 403Bs, 457s, and I'll tell you why again here shortly. I still like it when people use that strategy and delay Social Security to maximize the benefit. But I've also learned that the golden years of retirement are your 60s and 70s, right? As you get into your 80s, you become a lot less mobile. You're not traveling as much. Maybe you're not going to see your grandchildren as much, or they're coming to you. There's just not as many things that you're able to do at 85 that you could do at 65. And therefore, I've kind of changed my strategy a little bit. And sometimes I tell people to claim, hey, start claiming at 68, start claiming at 69. You don't need to wait an extra year or two, because now you can take that Social Security benefit and go on the cruise that you always wanted to go on, go to the national parks that you always wanted to go to, whatever it happens to be, whatever you enjoy doing. Sometimes it's nice to have that extra paycheck to help you afford to do that while you still can. That being said, it's definitely a decision that needs to be discussed amongst the family. All right. Well, I'm widowed or divorced, so how does that impact? Well, if you're widowed or divorced, you may be eligible for survivor benefits, divorce survivor benefits, or divorce spouse benefits that can increase your monthly check. So the survivor benefit is actually very difficult to understand, because it's at the age at which it is determined by two separate things. One, the age at which the deceased spouse passed away, and then when the remaining spouse actually claims the benefit. And there's all these different rules around it. If you are a widow, I would encourage you to talk to me or send me an email offline, because I can walk you through them, but it's pretty difficult to explain to a larger group, just because it took me probably a year to understand exactly how it works. So again, the survivor benefit, two key factors. One, when the spouse passed away, and then the second one is the age at which the widow claims the survivor benefit, right? What to know about survivor benefits is that you can claim 100% of the deceased spouse's benefit if you wait a full retirement age or later. And you also are not subject to earnings test on it. Now, one of the crazy things that you can do when it comes to Social Security claiming is if you are a widow, you can potentially claim your survivor benefit at age 60 and then switch to your own benefit at age 70. So your benefit's been maxed and you claim a reduced survivor benefit. Or the opposite, you claim your own smaller benefit at 62 and switch to the survivor benefit at 66 or whenever your full retirement age is. And that might be the optimization strategy. So it's really, really confusing when it gets to survivor benefits. And again, if you're out there and you're widowed, please let me know or shoot me an email offline and I'll be happy to share with you or determine your actual benefit and best way to claim it. The rules around the benefit: if spouse dies while both are receiving benefits, the widower can switch to the higher benefit. As an example, Joe and Julie are married. Both are over full retirement age. Joe's is $2,000. Julie's benefit's $1,200. Joe passes away. So Julie notifies Social Security and her $1,200 benefit is replaced by his $2,000 benefit. You don't get both. You wouldn't get the $2,000 and the $1,200. You just switch to the higher of the two. Delayed claiming, so Joe and Julie are married. Joe's primary insurance amount is $2,000. He files for Social Security at 70, right? Gets the extra 32% because of delayed retirement credits. Now that's not realistic because we're not adding in the cost of living adjustment, so it'd actually be higher. But just for illustrative purposes, Joe dies. Julie's survivor benefit will be equal to Joe's benefit of $2,640, dependent on that second thing when they decide to claim. I say probably maybe 1 out of every 4 of these lectures I give, I get 1 or 2 people that are widows and are wondering how to claim their benefits. So not very common, so I won't spend much more time on it. Again, email me if you have questions offline. Rules around a survivor benefit: must be married at least 9 months, with the exception being some type of fatal accident. Survivor must be at least 60 for the reduced benefit. Survivor benefit not available if the widower remarries. That benefit is not available before if they remarry before age 60, right? Unless they get divorced again, and then they should probably stop getting married, right? And then they would be eligible for the survivor benefit off of the first deceased husband. And the divorced spouse benefit available if a marriage lasted 10 years or longer. So what is a divorced spouse benefit? Well, it's the same as a spousal benefit, so it's almost the exact same as long as the marriage lasted 10 years or more. The person receiving the divorced spouse benefit is currently unmarried and the ex-spouse is at least age 62. This goes back to that example I gave earlier that, yes, you could just get divorced and then you claim each other's benefits at an earlier time frame. Because remember, if you're just claiming a spousal benefit, the spousal meaning you're married, the spouse has to start their benefit for you to be eligible for the spousal benefit. In the case of divorced, if I'm divorced from my wife and I want to claim off of her, I can, even if she has not filed. This just prevents spouses that get divorced and don't get along, which happens often, as all of you know. Hence the reason for the divorce, one spouse holding the other one hostage on a Social Security benefit. So it's actually it's a complex rule, but it's a pretty fair rule, in my opinion, just so you don't have these, ex-spouses tormenting each other by withholding their Social Security benefit. And then if divorce was more than 2 years ago, the ex-spouse does not have to have filed for benefits. So again, going back to that person that asked if they should get divorced, well, it still has to wait 2 years for that to happen. And that was kind of their trying to fill the loophole there. Rules: so more than one ex-spouse can receive benefits on the same worker's record. The old story of Johnny Carson always comes in here. I guess he was married, 3-4 times, and all of his ex-spouses were claiming on his Social Security benefit. It would seem like that it can't happen, but it certainly can. The benefits, this is often too why you see people that are in their golden years not getting remarried, even though they have a long-term partner. It's so they can claim on their ex-spouse. Because remember, once you get remarried, you cannot. Divorced spouse benefits stop upon remarriage of spouse collecting benefits. So that's a lot of times why you see that happening. are not happening. So in life, would you rather be earlier, delayed, pay a penalty, or get a bonus? Again, biggest problem that you're here for this lecture is that people are hurting their retirements by making terrible Social Security decisions. And I think it's really important. It's Social Security benefits in today's world where primary insurance amounts are, oftentimes I see well over $3,000 a month. And then if they delay, their checks could be $4,000 or $5,000 a month down the road. You're looking at a pot of up to $2 million if you live to your 90s available to you for to basically withdraw on a monthly basis. So it's a pretty valuable decision to make. You can make some of these decisions that I've seen that have been made without a proper analysis have cost the beneficiaries up to a half to three-quarters to even $1 million in benefits by, both claiming early or doing something like that. So this is where I'm going to end on today, and I'm going to go to the whiteboard. We're going to consider Social Security in the context of your overall retirement plan and all the different things that you have available to you in retirement. So let's stop this share real quick and go down here to my whiteboard. And let me stop there real quick, and please unmute yourself because I don't have a UCSD person in here to tell me. If you have a question, I'm just going to throw it out there. If anybody has a question real quick on any of the maximization strategies. No? Okay.
Hi.
All right. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Rhonda. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm sorry. I wanted to attend the other Social Security as well. I'm Delane. I'm single. I'm 67. And I'm really wanting to use my other savings and stuff so that I have that maximum on the Social Security from what I've heard you say before at age 70. But all this political stuff about, oh no, Social Security's on this old green screen stuff, and all those people that know how to tweak it are now being fired. All those scare things, and I'm going, I've had friends go, oh, you better take it now. And I'm going, you know what? I'm not moving out of fear. I want to wait till 70. I'm going to try to stay to this. But you probably spoke to that, and I'll look on the YouTube. Is it YouTube through the retirement link?
Yes, YouTube. Exactly. Yep. You can actually just Google my name too, and a bunch of the presentations come up.
Oh, sweet. Sweet. Okay.
Yeah. And if you see anything bad on there, let me know because I haven't Googled my name in a long time, but I did do it after the October sessions. No, you have a great point. Well, the point you bring to me and to the group is very salient. You can't listen to your friends that are being driven by fear now. I know there's a lot of fear out of there right now based on what's been going on politically. Some people are happy. Most of my university clients are not, and so I think there's a lot of people that are concerned, and I'm not going to sit here and say they shouldn't be, but when it comes to Social Security, I don't think you need to be concerned. Remember how Social Security works. I get a monthly paycheck, right, from my broker dealer, or it's not really a paycheck, it's a 1099. But what do I immediately do, and my employees, in their W-2, what comes out? 6.2% of their check up to that it immediately comes out on FICA taxes, and it goes immediately turned around and given to beneficiaries of Social Security. People think that there's this magical pot somewhere of money that they're doling out. That's not the way it works. So as long as there are people working, right, and there are a lot of people in this country working, I'm working right now. So I'm working right now to pay your guys' Social Security benefits, right? If you're fully retired and you're sitting here in this lecture right now, my FICA tax goes immediately the same month as a benefit to you, right? And quite frankly, and again, I don't do politics on here, but if you think about it from a Social Security perspective, that is why immigration and bringing people to this country is actually very beneficial to the Social Security system, and we need it to support the Social Security system so we don't become Japan, right? Japan has a very strict immigration policy, and their social benefits are really struggling because they don't have a younger population that is coming up to fill the gap. We've got the baby boomers in full retirement. There's 10,000 of you retiring each day here in the United States and eligible for Social Security. 10,000 a day are eligible roughly for Social Security. We have to fill those coffers with people like me that are continuing to work, right? And so, or someone that immigrates to this country and works. Hopefully sorry, I was getting a call on the other line there. My car in the shop. Anyhow,
So somebody can't just like
so
take
to
that
try to
money.
assuage some of your fears,
Yeah.
again, this isn't something like Doge or whatever can take the pot that is Social Security and move it somewhere, whatever, because you're just getting benefits that are immediately withdrawn from paychecks on a monthly, biweekly, whatever basis. So going back to that slide about the Social Security Trust Fund, there's $2.77 trillion, not billion, $trillion in there. And you have all the people working that are putting in. So last year was the first deficit to the Social Security Trust Fund at 2.77 trillion. And if I just bring up the numbers here again, well, I don't want to close the whiteboard down, but I think it was like 200 or not 200, like 23 billion deficit or something like that. 23 billion deficit on a $2.77 trillion trust fund is not that much. The thing is, it's going to continue to increase. And so Social Security, the actuaries say, we still need to figure out a way to shore it up here in the next 9 to 10 years. My prediction is you're going to see the amount subject to Social Security, like they're going to at some point say, you make 500,000 a year, 400 of that 500,000 is going to be subject to Social Security tax. That's going to help shore it up. And the other thing that's going to help, you make a 10 million a year, instead of only the first 160,000 being subject to Social Security tax, your first 5 million is going to be subject to Social Security tax. They're going to do something graduated like that, right? In my opinion. The other thing they're going to do is, because the millennials, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Y and A and whatever else is up the alphabet soup of generations, they're going to move the full retirement age out, right? They've already done it. It started at 65, then it went to 66, then it stair-stepped up to 67. I would be shocked if my children, who are my two little girls that are 8 and 6, I'd be shocked if their full retirement age isn't 70 or beyond, because they're going to live to be 120 years old by then. So that's my prediction. So I know we digressed there. Hopefully I answered your question. I'm going to jump into how we bring this all together, right? The whole point is not for all of you to become a Social Security expert, because that's what my job is, and you can always ask me any of the questions that you have. But how do you put this together in retirement? Well, we talked about Social Security, so let's put that right here. Here's your Social Security. This is what I like to call down here your mailbox money, right? Your mailbox money, meaning this is your retirement paycheck. You're no longer working for UC. You're off traveling the world or doing whatever you want to do in retirement, and this is how you have income in retirement. All right, so I'm going to put up here IRA, but I want you to think of that as the same thing as your 403, your 457, and your your DC, the cap, or whatever you have in retirement, and you consolidate that into an IRA. And then let's say I'll just put a trust account here, but you can think of it as a brokerage account, right? And you got your UC pension here, most of you, not all of you. And, over here, you could have real estate or something like that. But all of these come together and create your retirement income. Remember, when you take money out of this IRA, right, you pay ordinary income taxes at both the federal and the state level, right? And California has a very accelerated income tax, so it gets you right to 9% at like $100,000 in income. And so everything pretty much is going to be subject to that everything coming out of the IRA is subject to ordinary income, I should say. Your pension, just like your paycheck, all subject to ordinary income. Real estate, ordinary income. Yes, I know people say, oh, I have depreciation and all that stuff. So I'll just say ordinary income minus depreciation. Your trust account or your brokerage account, yeah, you may have a dividend rate or a special rate at the federal level, But does California have a special rate? Nope. Ordinary income. Everything in California is ordinary income. There is no capital gains rate, right? There's no specific, better rate for any type of capital gains or dividends in California. It's all ordinary income. But remember the Social Security over here, if we remember from the tax part, 85 cents on the dollar at a max is subject to federal tax, and the tax in California is a big fat 0. So Social Security is worth more than every one of these other sources of income in a dollar for dollar comparison. So what is my advice from that, depending on when you're going to start it, but from 62 to 70, what do you do? Ryan, I'm totally buying into this. I see the delayed retirement credits. I know that I'm going to average somewhere between 8 and 10% a year rate of return on my Social Security benefit without having to pay any tax on that rate of return. I know that's going to be beneficial for me in retirement. Where do I take or draw down money? And I say you draw this down first, right? And fill in the gap of what you determine with your advisor, by yourself, or however you do it, what you need in this income pot, and replace the Social Security. Don't turn it on. Draw down this account first while you delay Social Security. And then once you get here or somewhere there close to, you turn on the Social Security, and then you stop drawing down this as much, and it will continue to grow back until you get to RMDs. Why is that good? Well, let me see if I can erase this board here real quick. Clear page, yes, clear page. All right, so if I invest at Fidelity or Vanguard or with Ryan, let's put my name there, whatever I happen to do, right? So I have this beautiful portfolio, right? Is that, even if it's 80% bonds and 10% government treasuries and 10% stocks, is that subject to market risk, right? The ups and downs in the market. The market's been really fun lately, hasn't it? Right. So it's subject to all these risks, right? I don't care if you're an indexer and you like Vanguard, or you like the Fidelity funds because you've been in them forever for the 403B, or if you like me, whichever one. All three of these come with fees. What is the fee for Social Security to put money in your mailbox, or I should say in your bank account on a monthly basis? What is that fee? 0. Rhonda, you got it. Absolutely 0. Nada. So if you are drawing down from these accounts, Fidelity, Vanguard, Ryan, whatever it happens to be, from 62 to 70, what are you essentially doing for your retirement? You're reducing your long-term fees and reducing your risk at the most important time of your life. You've made the money you're going to make in your life, and by drawing down these accounts from 62 to 70, you are exchanging a current dollar of these accounts for a future dollar of Social Security, which again, to put that money in your bank account or your mailbox, absolutely 0. So you're reducing your long-term fees, and you're reducing your long-term risk because you have less assets subject to market risk, interest rate risk, all those different risks that we learn about. Doesn't that sound like a good idea for your retirement? It does to me. And that's why I am a big proponent of it. Why do you not normally hear this from Fidelity or maybe Vanguard, but you hear it from me? Why? Because these people get paid less when you take money out of it, right? And the reality of it is, it's the right advice, because you want to be more conservative, not in your politics, but in your accounts as you get older in retirement, and you're exchanging a dollar from a risk feed asset into a risk-free 0-fee asset. So I will stop there. Hopefully that's something you've never heard before, and that really helped out. I'll just open it up for questions. Just unmute yourself.